Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to begin this episode with a personal story, something that happened before I was even born. Now, after Amin had been overthrown out of power in 1979, a few governments came up. One of Yusuf Olule, the other one was of Godfrey Bina Issa, and then one that short-lived was of Paul Mwanga. And then we went into the 1980 elections, and then afterwards elections were rigged, and Museveni went to the bush. And 1986, he won the Bush War, and then he took over power. Now, between that short period of time, 1970 up to 1980, so many things happened. Remember, Museveni was one of those people who actually fought to overthrow Idi Amin. Now, after the overthrow of Idi Amin, there was a persecution of people that were thought to be supporters of Amin, and people that were thought that they would actually give Amin support to come back and take over the government. Now, different groups of people were persecuted. People from Amin's tribe, but most notably were the Muslims in Uganda. Now, amongst the people who took part in such a purge, of course, Obote was one of them, Museveni was one of them, and the governments, the loose governments that were there at the time, the likes of Paul Mwanga and all these other people. Now, what is so interesting is this. By that time, I wasn't yet born. I personally, I was born in Museveni's regime after 1986. Now, this is what is interesting. One day, I was sitting with my elder brother, as well as my dad. My dad never wanted to talk about things that happened during those days and, talking about politics of those days and times. But being a person who is interested in history, I had to ask some of my brothers about the things that happened in those days. Now, he told me, one of my elder brothers, when Amin was overthrown, they were home eating food, and the military junta and the thugs of the so-called governments that were there at the time after Amin's overthrow, of which I remember very well, that Museveni was, I think, the Minister of Defense or something of that sort under Yusuf Olule's government, and then Militant Obote and all this kind of thing. So they came at home and they arrested my father, let's say kidnapped him or abducted him, and took him away. They took him away for almost a month. The army men claimed that my father was supporting rebels. Or they said that my father was actually supporting Idi Amin, which was actually laughable, because my dad was nowhere engaged in these things. But he was abducted just for nothing. Now, he was taken in one of those safe houses like the ones we have today. In those safe houses, people were beaten, people were tortured. And so my dad also had to face the same. Now, some people would be taken out of the safe houses. This is post-Amin. Some people were taken out of the safe houses and never to be seen again. Some that were given back to their families, they were given back to their families in a completely bad shape than they were taken in. Just to say that, okay, there you go and die and have a decent burial for your parent, from your family. So while my dad was there, my mom and my other siblings tried to look for where my father was. They looked for him all over the place. They could not find him. They went to all police stations. They tried all safe houses. They couldn't find him. But through the grace of God, my father told them this incident after he was released. He told them that while he was there, my father used to sell spare parts, car spare parts and, like spare parts for cars and automobile. So they told him, one of the gentlemen who had bought automobile spare parts from him, he was his good customer, but he was someone in the army. So he sees him and calls him by his name. Hey, let's say for this case, Mayanja. Hey, Mayanja, what are you doing here? And my dad, in a very, very tired voice, he told them, I've been arrested, that I was supporting Idi Amin and I was planning Amin's comeback. That is why I've been arrested. So the gentleman told the captures that, no, this is a good man. This guy is not, in any support of the rebels. He has not been supporting the rebels. There is no evidence to that. No, you should release this gentleman. Let this gentleman go back home. Well, how could you keep this gentleman in this place for all this time? This is a good guy. He has been good. By that time, my dad had been there for almost, I think, a month. Now, so when these men had the orders from this gentleman, they released my father. And my father came back home to his family. Now, a couple of years later, he gave birth to 4 more children. But I always sit back and wonder that if my father was one of those people who was taken out of that safe house and never to be seen again, maybe I wouldn't be here. But with God's grace, he used one of those army men to intercede for my father, and his life was spared. All this happened post-Amin. What is happening today? Why am I telling this story? It is because that what is happening in Uganda today is completely, it is what happened in the 60s, 70s, as well as the 80s. Seeking revenge, seeking sectarian revenge in terms of religion and in terms of tribe. That is what Museveni is doing. He recently said that the people that voted for Bobi Wine are people from Buganda who are sectarian. Right now, Museveni is kidnapping, abducting, and taking away people. And the majority of the people that are being kidnapped are people from Buganda, which is really sad. And no one seems to talk about it like as if it is not happening in the country. Especially the so-called clergymen, the so-called intellectuals, the so-called Uganda Law Society. No one seems to matter, as if nothing is happening in the country. Now what is happening is this, that unfortunately my father passed away, and may God bless his soul. But the people that are being arrested, the children that are being arrested, these are kids, some of them are some of them are below 18 years. Some of them are not even yet 30. But for some who are lucky, their parents still live. And they passed through what my dad went through. Now, the tables have almost turned, whereby we the children are forced to sit on a table and tell our parents the ordeal we went through after Amin. And our parents are forced to listen and try to draw or try to look and see and understand what they also went through after Amin was overthrown. But what is interesting on the other hand is, to some families today, whose people are being taken away, things are worse, where a parent who was kidnapped in the 80s and 60s, in the 80s and 70s and post-Amin, are being forced to narrate the ordeal that they went through back then and the ordeal they are forced to face under Museveni's government. Not only them, but also their children. That is what we are facing in Uganda today. People are being kidnapped day and night. People are being taken away. By the time they bring them back, bones are broken, hearts are broken. They are being tortured mentally and physically. And all that these people are saying are, no, Museveni won a very credible election. The election was peaceful. But Museveni hasn't stopped in his tracks of violence. Why can't these people listen? Why can't they see this? It is so sad. The Monitor reported that over 200 people are being taken day and night. There is a certain type of car known as a drone. A drone is not these, gadgets that you see flying up like a drone. No, there is a car. It looks like a matatu or it looks like a van. And it is the type of vehicle of choice that Museveni's hoodlums have chose to use. Now, most of these people are so innocent that some of them are not engaged in politics. But because Museveni has hired a lot of thugs and hoodlums, some of them are even settling scores by saying that, oh, you see that gentleman? I don't like him. So what do? Just say that he supported Bobi Wine. And the hoodlums will actually come, the thugs will come, and they will take him away. Never to be seen again. Will be beaten to the pulp. Killed. Is a gentleman known as John Bosco Chibalama. For 3 years he has been lost, never to be seen again. You are lucky that if you are even taken to prison. But this is what is happening in the country. Abductions have become abductions. Kidnaps have become kidnaps. Parents are crying. Everyone out there, so many people have been crying like parents. They are saying our children have been taken away. Can you imagine? Children that were born in Museveni's regime. I know very well that if I was in Uganda, I would be part of the group that is being taken away. But just imagine someone coming and taking away your children. Just because he is wearing a mask that has Bobi Wine on it. And the price they have to pay is broken bones, injuries, both mental as well as physical. The cycle of revenge has to stop. Museveni is paying, he is beating up people in the central region where he failed to rig the election because of the overwhelming votes that Bobi Wine got. Now what he has decided to do is to unleash violence and beat all these people up for voting for Bobi Wine. To remind you, in 1996, Uganda had its first election since 1986, after Museveni had taken power. You know what happened? In 1996, the election had 3 people. John Paul Kawanga Semogerere, Museveni Yoweri Kaguta, as well as a gentleman known as Chibirige Mayanja of the JEMA, the other one was of the DP, and then Museveni of the NRM. Now, when the people of the North overwhelmingly voted for Semogerere and the opposition in 1996, when I talk about the North, in Uganda we have like the North and, this kind of thing. So when the people of the North actually voted for Semogerere, that is the opposition that was there at the time, because Obote had come from the North, and because Museveni had overthrown Obote, and then the people of the North had denied him the votes. So what Museveni did, he unleashed a lot of violence in the name of fighting the LRA. People of the North were beaten to the pulp. They were thrown into concentration camps. A lot of violence was unleashed to them. Men were raped. Women were raped. Children were raped. Indiscriminate killing of people. They were put in camps, denied cleaning water, denied health facilities and all this kind of thing. This part of Uganda was cut off completely and no one would have access to this area in the name of fighting the LRA. Ever since that period, Museveni has always claimed victory in the North. Ever since that period, these people have been beaten they have been scared. And whatever positions that you see in the North, people who are supporting Museveni, they were all made, or that kind of support was made out of violence, as well as people's blood, rape, and murdering people all over the place, indiscriminately. Children, women, men. All these things are documented. Now Central Uganda, that is Buganda region, is now also paying the price for overwhelmingly supporting Bobi Wine and kicking over 25 ministers of Museveni out of the central region. What is the price now? What is the now it's payback time from Museveni. Beating people up, kidnapping them, and forcing them into accepting that they are working with Bobi Wine to unleash or to create protests and things of that sort. Some people might argue that the kidnaps are meant as a deterrent or are meant as a means to stop people from protesting, or to convince people to stop, not to protest the results and things of that sort. That's a non-starter, my friend. Museveni is a man of violence. If you do not support him, he will bribe you. If you refuse the bribe, he will either arrest you and put you in his safe houses, beat you up like it is happening, and then on the other hand, he will be seated there saying that, oh, no, we should sit for negotiations. Well, for anyone who is willing to go and sit in Museveni's negotiations, you can go and be part of them. I'll be here waiting. If you manage to succeed, thank God. But if you don't manage to succeed, well, it shouldn't come as a surprise to some of us. Because the level of violence, the level of intimidation, the level of kidnaps and abductions that are taking place in the world, especially to people who were born in Museveni's regime after 1986. This gentleman really doesn't have a heart for our nation. What he is literally doing is destroying the future of Uganda, so that Uganda can belong to a few people. Some of us have been forced into self-exile. Dr. Stella Nyanze had to leave the country with his children. Bobi Wine had to send his children and his wife out of the country. For some of the people who are not lucky, they are now facing the wrath of Museveni, especially within the central region of Uganda. Now, if you're looking for sectarianism and tribalism, I think this is the best description of tribalism, where a leader goes after a certain region targeted just because of the people of that particular region. For this case, it is because in central region, the majority of the people are Baganda. And for that reason, it is because that they refuse to support him, so he has targeted them to beat them, abduct them, kill them, and rape them in order to force them to support him. Because when you look at what the Daily Monitor, the list of people that were released, all these names are Baganda people. Most of them, like the majority of them, like 90% of all these people, they're all Baganda that were abducted, that are being kidnapped, that are being taken away. What did the Baganda ever do to Museveni? These are the same people, the Baganda, who actually supported his liberation war in 1986. Museveni fought in Buganda to take over the country. In Luwero, that is where the epicenter of his war was, like in the so-called Luwero Triangle. That is what happened. The Baganda supported him. The Kabaka traveled in these areas of Luwero to motivate the people of Buganda to support this struggle. And now, 35 years later, the gentleman has turned against the Baganda. My parting shot. People should understand, Museveni is the man who cannot be trusted. Museveni is a man who cannot be appeased. If you try to make appeasement policies with Museveni, that let us sit and negotiate, let us do this and that, he will do the complete opposite. You cannot go into negotiations with this gentleman. The best thing to do is the people of Uganda have to rise up. The people of Uganda have to use everything within the constitution. They have to exhaust every non-violent means to reject and renounce all these sorts of actions of violence of Museveni. Because we are not going to accept, we are not going to bow down. We are not going to accept our future to be taken away. We are not going to accept this. My dad was thrown in a safe house for something that he was accused of that he did not commit. We are being thrown in safe houses as well. And this routine is going to continue for as long as Museveni and his NRM cartel is still running the country. We need to raise up. We need to stop this. So ladies and gentlemen who are watching me from different parts of the world, the abductions and killings that are going on in Uganda are so absurd. And to see that the West is still supporting this gentleman is something that is really, really, really very crazy. It's really bad. So sad. So sad. I mean, it is really bad. And the fact that Museveni has targeted a particular region just because they did not vote for him, I mean, that is the gentleman they want to play whatever, this so-called diplomacy and appeasement policies with. You remember when one of the British prime ministers went to see Hitler in the so-called appeasement policy. And they were like, okay, let me go and see Hitler. Hitler might be a good guy. Yeah, we can appease him, do a few things here and there, and he will change. Well, they went to see Hitler, and Hitler told them that, look here, guys, yeah, I understand. I won't attack, Eastern Europe, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm all right. We are good. So the British Prime Minister went back, and I think was he Lord Chamberlain, I think. And he was like, yeah, Hitler is a good guy. I think we can work with him, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this guy is so good. Before even a few years could pass, the gentleman started attacking Eastern Europe. In the end, what happened was the Second World War. But some people within Europe and the rest of the world had told these Britons that, look here, Hitler is not a man to be negotiated with. Hitler is not a man that can be appeased. He will do the complete opposite. Museveni is not a man who can be appeased. He's not a man who can be negotiated with. You have to make a decision to either stand with him or you have to say that Museveni has to go. Because if you don't do that and you remain neutral, that, okay, let us balance this, let me tell you one thing. What is going to happen is you are only favoring the dictator and you are only favoring his practices. So, I hope, because the essence as to why I was telling you what is happening in Uganda is kidnaps, torture, and abductions that are taking place. People are looking for their families. They cannot find them. People are looking for their children, sons, daughters, women. They cannot find them. If you can find a body, you are lucky. If they are given back to you, they are deformed. They have broken arms, fingernails taken out, and so on and so forth. So guys, pray for Uganda, pray for us, pray for Bobi Wine and everyone. Because where we are right now is not a really, really good situation. Especially pray for the people in Buganda as well as people in central Uganda, because these people are being targeted in a very, very, very ridiculous and inhuman way. All right, thank you very much for listening and watching this episode. Please share and let the world know what is taking place in Uganda. Till we meet again, bye-bye.